Hi, Ryan Mounts here. We're going to take a look at my progress on WorkFlowPro for Torque 3D. Here I've just got a basic scene, just some terrain, a sky, nothing fancy. We just want to see how we could populate this scene with WorkFlowPro. So here's the interface, pretty simple. It's a work in progress. You've got an asset browser over here on the right with a couple of tabs that don't have anything in them yet. And you can collapse that, and you can just mouse over it if you want to, and it'll pop back open for easy access. And then you can, it'll collapse itself for some good working real estate there. And then you can pin it back open. Up in the left-hand corner is a green remote object status indicator, and we'll talk about what that means a little later. So let's add some assets to the browser. So here's the path manager, and this is where you begin. You can start adding paths to your assets. So we'll just start off here in the local game folder and add the actors folder. You can see the status is connected, so that's good. Say OK. And you can see it's loaded up a couple of panes here. And these are all the assets. It makes a thumbnail for each asset in that folder. You just grab the thumbnail, drag it out into the world, and there it is. So you can see that our remote object indicator stayed green, and that's because this Gideon model, it came from our local game folder. So that is a local object. Anything that's not in the game folder is a remote object. So let's go add some remote objects to look at. We can load them from a remote server. Like in this case, I'll just navigate to where I have some just some copies of the assets from the starter FPS game. So you can see that path was added, and it is connected. Let's go ahead and add another example. And this one will be an external hard drive from drive E. And I have the death ball from beta 3. And you can see it connected fine too. So click OK and wait just a minute for it to load up. And you can see it's added a lot more panes. And if the thumbnail doesn't load up quickly, then you can just double click it and that'll refresh it. So we've got a bunch of different options here. You can see now we have two Gideons because the second one is from that remote server. And when I drag it into the scene, you see there's a little exclamation point there. That indicates that this is a remote object, whereas the other one was local. You can see our status indicator turned red, and it tells us that we can make local copies if we click it. So this guy exists on the remote server, so you wouldn't want to deploy a game this way because the asset isn't actually on your local computer, so it wouldn't show up in game if you deployed it at this point. So let's go add a few other things. Drag a station out here, and then if we right click, you get a context menu that's kind of like what you'd see in 3D Studio Max. You can move, rotate, scale. Quick form isn't implemented yet. And I have what I call vert snap and a quick pivot option. We'll get into that a little bit later. But for now, let's just scale this down and kind of get it situated beneath these hills here. So you can see it's pretty quick and easy to just translate and move your objects around. I think we'll move this up just a little bit out of the terrain. So now let's take a look at dropping some other objects into the scene. Here, let's pin this open. Now whenever you drag an object into the screen, it's going to align itself to the normal of the surface that's beneath the cursor. So just kind of a handy alignment feature. So you just drag out and you just drop wherever you want it to be. So you can just quickly populate your scene with guns or whatever you want to put in there. So let's take a look at one of these other features in the context menu, the Vert Snap. It basically allows you to select any vertex in a model and drag it and snap it to another vertex. It's just that quick and that easy. And you can see those vertices are exactly lined up. It's easy, makes it easy to line up objects, especially if you have boxes or something you want to snap them together. Let's put a couple of trees out here. Let's make a small forest around our station here. Now I'm going to show you how to use the quick pivot option when you want to make your transforms relative to something besides the group center or a local object center. Let's try to rotate these trees around the tower of the station. You can see the quick pivot object is over to the side. Let's align it to the vertex in the center of the tower. So now we can select these trees and we can rotate them with respect to the center of that tower. You could also rotate them about an object if you picked an object instead of a vertex. And every transform we do is relative to that quick pivot, whether it be scale or rotating or translation. So now we have a bunch of remote objects in our scene as indicated by those exclamation points, and we wouldn't want to deploy the game that way, so it would be tedious to try to copy over all of these assets from all their different remote locations, but WorkFlowPro makes it easy. So here's our shapes folder in our local game folder. We're going to create a remote folder here to copy all of our assets into. So if we go back into our path manager, we have a local synchronization path that isn't specified yet. But let's go create a new remote folder in our art and shapes folder. And this is where all of our assets are going to be copied to, along with all of their textures and material definitions. So we've got that set up. So click OK. Now all we have to do is click the status indicator button like it says, and there it goes. And it gives you a little progress bar to show you what it's doing with a little feedback, and it's complete. And you notice all of the exclamation point icons are gone now, and we have a remote folder, and inside of it you can see all of the assets that used to be remote, located on an external hard drive and on a remote server. Now they're in our local game folder, and we are ready to deploy. So that's just how you could use WorkFlowPro to speed up your workflow.